Hey there, podcast listeners. Thanks so much for your attention. Today, we are talking about the baby steps of staging. We've got 7 top tips to help you get top dollar.
Thanks for tuning in to the Realtor Moms podcast. I'm Tasha.
And I'm Jamie. We're full-time realtors in the FM and surrounding areas and admittedly average moms. This is how we sell homes
And try to keep our kids alive. Hello, Realtor Moms podcast.
Hello.
Yes, today, Jamie and I are talking about the baby steps of staging, getting top dollar.
And who doesn't want top dollar?
Yes.
For your home. So when you're thinking about selling, we don't always live in our homes with our furniture and our personal belongings sitting in the same place as we would if we were advertising it for sale.
Oh, I tell people all the time. I'm like, Don't look at my house. It's a disaster.
Right.
I'm like,
I'm a hypocrite.
We are hypocrites, but we're also not trying to sell our homes.
Exactly.
But I know exactly the things I would need to do, and the things we would do and will do when it comes time to selling our home.
Right. So yes, we have very different recommendations for when it's time to go on the market. And some of these might be sort of obvious, but others may not. So here's our 7 staging tips.
Yes. So starting off with number 1, this is by far and away the obvious one. Yes. Declutter and depersonalize. You need to remove your, personal photos and really do what we can to make your home feel almost like a model home, like a new construction model home that's perfectly staged.
Yep. Or think about it like how you look at photos of hotels you want to stay at or Airbnbs, right?
Correct.
Like they're very depersonalized. Now, a little bit of color, a little bit of flair is certainly not a bad thing, but we want people to see themselves in your home instead of you and pictures of your family in your home.
I always say if we can get to the point where buyers are imagining their own personal belongings in place of what's already there, then that's half the battle. Right there, then and there. So that's really the goal as to why you want to declutter and depersonalize your home.
Well, and furthermore, the decluttering, I like to tell people no more than 80% full, if you can get away with it, in your closets, pantry, shelving, that kind of thing. Because if it looks like you don't fit or all your things don't fit in that space, a buyer is going to even subliminally sort of assume their stuff won't fit.
Exactly.
So
I always say, like, sometimes the worst thing you can see is a shoe rack in the front entryway or it says,
hey, we have nowhere to put our shoes.
We have
so
nowhere to put our
rack.
stuff. And a lot of times buyers, they may not be able to put their finger on why a home doesn't fit, but these are the things that, the feeling that they get when they walk through a home that hasn't been decluttered and depersonalized. So,
Those are huge tips.
Yes.
And we're sorry, you've heard them a million times, but that is number 1 every time because it actually makes a huge difference.
It does.
So what's number 2?
Neutralize. You really want neutral paint colors and decor. I mean, how many times do you flip through photos and all of a sudden this lime green or red red wall pops up and it's jarring.
Right.
It's very jarring.
There's some things we can do with photos to sort of make loud wall colors a little more subtle in our listing images of the home. But if you're going to be doing all this work, we want to get you top dollar. Really, it's worth every penny to hire a painter, or if you're good with painting, to do some of that painting on your own. A lot of people tend to think, well, I don't want to paint because I don't know what color the next buyer is going to want. If you go neutral, it is 99% of the time going to be much, much more well received than really anything with a lot of color on the wall. Don't worry about upsetting a buyer because you went grayish and they wanted beige. That's really not going to happen. Have you ever, Tasha, had somebody come in and it was a very neutral palette in the house and they were turned off by it?
No, they weren't, because at least they felt it was move-in ready.
Yeah.
And they could change it when they were ready.
Yeah. Now, have you conversely had someone walk in when the walls were a super bright color or just a really dated feel, say wallpaper, borders, things like that, and
then
have a problem? It's hard to get them to not focus on.
Yes,
the walls.
It's very hard. I had some clients just this week where we were looking through a home, and of course they had their kids' paint colors, like these dark and not dark necessarily, but just deeper kind of kid colors, personal colors. You know,
and they probably looked fabulous.
They look fabulous,
the
and they do look fabulous for a child. But they were walking in and they imagined the room smaller than what they were because of the paint colors on the wall. And I said, why don't we just take a second walk through this home and make sure that, and take some measurements and make sure that it feels how you're remembering it. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's not as small as I imagined.
Sure. Yes. So paint colors can play some tricks on the eyes, too.
Correct.
So just bite the bullet, do the paint, neutral colors, neutral decor. If you've got a really wild kind of rug or extra large wall hanging or something that's very, very vivid, probably need to neutralize those.
Correct.
Replace them with something more basic in color.
Okay, so what's the next one on the list, Jamie?
Maximizing your natural light. Opening up curtains and blinds.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
light, bright, and airy.
Yeah,
just imagine that in your mind as you're thinking and looking at your home, because I mean, if you're, again, people shop online, but those photos that, you know, everything feels kind of dark and dingy versus the ones that are very light and bright, those light and bright homes will attract buyers, not just online in photos, but also in person.
Absolutely.
Every single time.
We love to walk into a home that feels like it doesn't even matter if the light switches are on, right? But at the same time, we also live in a climate where it gets dark at like 6:30 in March.
Yes.
6:30 in the afternoon. And in those cases, if you are home prior to a showing, do us a favor, do the buyer's realtor a favor, flip, and certainly yourselves a favor, flip every light switch on that you've got in the house. Turn them all on. You just can't go wrong with too much light.
I always tell my sellers, you know, make it your to-do list before you leave for work in the morning or wherever you're headed, and open up all those blinds, open up all those curtains.
Right.
You know.
Right. We know that you probably don't live like that because you value some privacy in your life. Most
but
people do.
For showings,
it makes a big
really
difference.
Helps. So.
Yep, it does.
Okay, well, the next one on the list is if you have outdated fixtures and hardware, they should be updated or replacing outdated fixtures. Yeah, the faucets.
The corroded shower heads that you really just don't ever use but aren't thinking of.
Correct. You know, those things are so easy to swap out. I chuckle. I'm like, if I can do it, anyone can do it. You know, it's a screwdriver. It's not that big, you know, not that difficult. And those items aren't that expensive to change out. I mean, you know, it just really is not a costly item to change.
Same with door handles on cabinets and drawers.
Yes.
Make sure you know what your size is. So measure from the center of the screw that's in the front of the cabinet door or drawer. Measure center to center if you've got more than one hole through your drawer, essentially. We're not recommending that you buy something that is going to cost a fortune or that you completely change the bolt pattern on your cabinet doors. No, we're just suggesting if it's something that's really dated or broken or all the finish is rubbed off, that is going to send a certain message like, oh, maybe this house has been really lived in hard, and that's just not fair. Let's freshen that stuff up and make it a great opportunity for your kitchen to shine. Same with, you know, get a little bit more modern faucet. If you've had that same faucet in there for 50 years and it's just not the most attractive thing, stuff like hardware and cabinet pulls and faucets and lighting fixtures are the jewelry of your home, really, and they make it kind of sparkle.
And it's can be a very cost-effective switch that can really help and make that big impact. So,
next one is deep clean. Q-tip clean, sometimes we like to say. This is the time where everybody's coming through and they're looking in the nooks and the crannies and checking to see how well of a steward of the home you have been, but also just they want to walk in and feel like it's fresh and it's clean and it smells nice. And, you know, lots of us have pets and we've got kids who are like, make it their personal priority to ruin the place.
Oh, I know.
Before a showing. And everybody can be a little bit, you know, reasonable. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect, but at the same time, if there are some cleaning things you've been neglecting.
Yeah, if you know that your kids like spilt a soda on the carpet and you just haven't gotten around to cleaning it up, now's the time. Yeah. So, think about those carpets, windows, making sure they're nice and clean. Again, it brings in that light and bright feeling.
It really does make a big difference if you've got especially some of those lower level split entry style home windows, the ones that are under your deck or kind of at the ground level. If we've had a hard rain, you know what I'm talking about. The dirt can kind of even splash up against the window. Man, it makes a huge difference if those are cleaned.
Yeah. And make sure
you don't have to hire someone. Just you can do it yourself.
Take an afternoon.
Give yourself a break, and maybe you do hire somebody to help you out a little bit.
The other thing to point out is make sure your appliances are kind of wiped up and nice, and if you have weeds, now's the time to get either weed killer or put on those gloves to start pulling some weeds, because again, it can make people feel like, okay, if this is an issue, are there other problems somewhere else in the home because it's been lived in rough. So
right on.
Yeah. So the next thing on our list is arranging furniture, creating really kind of a functional, inviting living space. So just, I know that everyone, they want that couch or chair or whatever they may have for furniture lined up with the TV, but maybe that's not the most functional flow for a home. This is where, us as realtors can really help. Jamie and I help all the time, adjusting and moving things around so it has the best flow for not just photos, but for showings and for the traffic that comes through your home.
Yeah. So one thing that sometimes when I'm working with a builder, we make sure that the sofa backs are not floating out in the middle of a room. Now, that's not always the best advice for every single property, but that was something I learned many years ago because we discovered that a lot of times when people come in, they come with their realtor and maybe their spouse or significant other or a friend or a parent or a kid or a couple kids or all of those people at once. And when you've got all these people congregating in what would normally be a sit-down area, it's really nice to be able to give them a place to stand together and communicate that's not feeling like you're standing on either side of a sofa or somebody has to be sitting on a chair or you don't want to cramp those spaces. So again, it's showing the home is different than how you would live in the home. And that can be a little bit uncomfortable because we know you like your things to be right where they're comfortable for you to relax at the end of the day or watch a show or a movie.
How you live is not how you sell.
But the goal is to get you through this period quickly or as quickly as reasonably possible and get you top dollar. And so we might walk through the house with you and recommend moving some furniture around.
Correct. So the last thing on our list, it's really creating that welcoming outdoor space.
Outdoor matters.
Yes. Stage.
Because people drive by oftentimes too before they even make an appointment.
Correct. So, staging your patio, decks, putting that planter on the front porch and making sure you water plants. Don't be like me.
Don't buy them if you're not going to take care of them because nothing is less welcoming than a porch full of dead plants.
But, keep in mind, if you can keep it alive for a short time period, you
can do it.
You can do it.
We believe in you.
Exactly.
Also, Fargo and the surrounding area, Detroit Lakes even, we are famous for our beige houses.
Yes.
Right? And as a person who has lived in 2 beige houses locally, I am
Fargo
perfectly
beige.
Guilty. And add a little color, add a little life. Maybe go out and buy a couple throw pillars to put on that brown set of chairs that you've got outside the front door, on the front porch, that kind of thing. Get something with a little color, a little pattern. Get outside.
It goes a long ways to making your home feel
visually interesting.
Visually interesting, and to give it life and to feel interesting and it stand out.
Yes.
So
we would totally love for your house to be the one with the cute front porch or that adorable patio set or swing and have people remember it in that way.
Perfect.
So outsides matter too.
Exactly. So those are baby steps of staging, making sure you get that top dollar for your home. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you hear, you can check out our library of tons more episodes on RealtorMomsPodcast.com. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or just about anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please never hesitate to reach out. We would love to be your realtors. This podcast is produced by Realtor Moms Podcast, Jamie R. Swenson and Tasha Barrett, Park Company Realtors, 4170 41st Avenue South, Fargo, North Dakota.